moves. Don't seem to find the rhythm, just wanna sing the blues. Feels like a song that never stops. Feels like it's never gonna. Gotta get that fire back in my bones before my heart turns into stone. So when somebody please pass the megaphone, I'll shout it on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Oh, hear my prayer tonight, I'm singing to the sky. Give me strength to raise my voice, let me testify. Oh, hear my prayer tonight, 'cause this is do or die. The time has come to make a choice, and I choose. Let it move you, let it move, let it move you. Yeah, I choose. Let it move you, let it move, let it move you. Yeah, back when I was younger, my eyes were full of life. But now that I am older, I live at the speed of light. Feels like the cycle never stops. Feels like it's never gonna. Gotta get that fire back in my bones before my heart turns into stone. So when somebody please pass the megaphone, I'll shout it on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Oh, hear my prayer tonight, I'm singing to the sky. Give me strength to raise my voice, let me testify. Oh, hear my prayer tonight, 'cause this is do or die. The time has come to make a choice, and I choose. Let it move you, let it move, let it move you. Yeah, I choose. Let it move you, let it move, let it move you. Though I walk through the valley in the shadow of night, oh, with you by my side, I'm stepping into the light. I choose. Let it move you, let it move, let it move you. Joy, 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 joy down in my heart to stay. I need that joy, 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 joy down in my heart to stay. Let it move you, let it move, let it move you. Let it move you, oh, let it move, let it move you. Though I walk through the valley in the shadow of night, oh, with you by my side, I'm stepping into the light. I choose. Let it move you, let it move, let it move you. Joy, joy, joy down in my heart to stay. I need that joy, 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 joy down in my heart to stay. Something on the inside coming on strong. Everything wasn't right. Now I can do no wrong. All I was afraid of bringing me down. All the walls around love falling to the ground. Joy rolling like the thunder rumble. Time to let the drops tumble. Listen to the hedge crumble. Now that I have joy flying on the wings of anger, rattling the chains and single minute and every hour. I'm drowning in it, and I can feel the power, and I keep on pushing through the good and the bad, and I believe because I have joy rolling like thunder rumble, time to let the teardrops tumble, listen to the heads crumble. Now that I have joy flying on the wings of rainbow, rattling the chains and tangle, see me from a different angle. Now I have joy.
Hello. Hey, good morning. Can you hear me okay? All right, now it's working a little better. Very good. Good morning, Crosswalk. All right, as everybody's making their way in here, so glad you're here today. We got a few announcements for you as we get cooking. Dar is not quite back yet, but she will be in a week or two, so we're looking forward to that. One thing I want to say as I welcome you today is next Saturday is July 4th. Crosswalk is a part of the Interfaith Leadership Council here in Napa, and it is a wonderful group of people. We get together every month, and it represents Christians, Jewish people, Muslims, Baha'i, what else we got? Buddhists. We have Unitarian Universalists. We have Center for Spiritual Living. And we've got some Christian traditions like Lutherans and Presbyterians and one Baptist church, us, in there. And anyway, it's this dynamic group. And last year we walked in the July 4th parade with just a big banner letting people know that we exist. And it was really, really well received. It was a lot of fun to go smile at people and wave and all that. And we want to make it bigger. So Candace Ramsey is going to be one who is going to be marching with them. She marched last year with us too. It was a lot of fun. And so we want congregation members from all our different faith communities to be a part of this. Bonus, you get your steps in for the day. So there's that. And it is a very positive experience, and I hope you'll consider it. I will get details to you. There's a big lineup and places where you're supposed to be. I will find out what our place in the parade is and tell you where to find that. And then look for Candace. Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town this coming Saturday, and so I won't be able to march like I hoped. But that's why I need you there to help represent Crosswalk and what we're all about. So I'll get you our whatever it's called, the number of where we are in the lineup, and give you a general idea where that is as soon as I know. I don't think we know that yet. So okay, so hopefully if you want to get some steps in, easy way to go. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is I want to thank you if you're brand new to us. If you're brand new to us, or if you didn't take advantage of our brand new gifts that we give people who it's their first time, is we do have a gift bag for you if this is your first visit with us. And the deal that we make with our first time guests is any of the books that we make available, you can pick one of those for free. And if you want a Bible that you can read, you can get that for free as well. All the Bibles are always free here. So anyway, you're welcome to grab that on your way out or during coffee hour or whatever. It's all for you. And I want to thank you also for your generous support. I'm going to be talking about generosity today anyway, but so many good things happen here at Crosswalk because you are generous toward Crosswalk. This beautiful courtyard has been cleaned up because a company here in town, Van Winden's Landscape Company, wanted to bless us because they're fans of us and they're a part of Crosswalk. So they just came in a week and a half ago and trimmed up some of the things that were looking overgrown and cleaned up the whole park space back there and helped make the place look great. That kind of generosity makes all the difference. So we're so grateful for your generosity. We can't do what we do without your help, and so we deeply appreciate the help that you give. I want to offer this welcome slide to us today and invite you to read it out loud with me right now. Let's do it. Welcome to Crosswalk. We are all equals here, all welcomed and affirmed, all lovely and messy human beings coming together in community to heal and renew and reset and restore and revision and reimagine our lives in the presence of the loving, living God. We won the award for run-on sentence today. We did it. One final thing before we commence into the service. I got a few thank yous that I want to offer up today and a little gift that goes with them. If your name is Sharon Rogers or Pam Gumbs or Bob Nations, please stand up. They stood up. Congratulations. They can still do it. So Bob and Sharon and Pam have served on our Board of Stewards for the last 3 years, and this is their last meeting today. And they've been such pivotal members. We have done so much good work over the last 3 years that they've been a part of it that we want to express our thanks. There's a little gift in there. So you guys are going to Grace's table for a nice lunch or a dinner. So look forward to that because we're all about Grace. Pam, you're not going to Grace's table here. You're going to Hop Creek, which is also a very graceful place. So anyway, all good. And Pam here was the chair of our board, which is just so great. Isn't it great that we are a part of a faith tradition that believes in the equality of men and women, and that we can celebrate women with all their skills and talent to lead at the highest level. And so that is the highest level as a non-staff or non-pastoral staff. And she has done just a remarkable job this year. We're so grateful for your leadership. She pulled off the very first ever off-site retreat, helped oversee two huge things with our capital campaign stuff and going on with that, and our strategic planning, helping that move forward. So she's done a remarkable job, and I deeply appreciate you. So thank you. Extra thank you for you. All right. Okay, so I got one quick thing for you to do with somebody near you or around your table if you're around one, and that is simply say what you are grateful for today. Take a turn. Everybody say it.
Well, good morning, crosswalkers. How's everybody doing? It looks like I missed my cue of coming up here. Sorry about the dead time. I'm going to sing a couple songs that I really like the lyrics to. It's very positive and very real. This first one's called Plant a Seed. He said, "You play." So get up because the next thing you know, you turn around and wonder where your whole life's gone. Remember, it's about the journey. Don't fill your days with worry. Sure, them young ones drive you crazy, but you're missing when they grow. Oh, time ain't always your friend. It starts slow and gets faster towards the end. So fill up your heart with love, pass it on before you go. And thank the man upstairs that you were there. Plant a seed and watch it grow. True love and the gospel might take a while to blossom, but you dig down in that garden and you plant them anyways. Just let God be the farmer. He's got the sun and water. It's up to him to let him bloom and let him see the light of day. Oh, time ain't always your friend. It starts slow and gets faster towards the end. So fill up your heart with love, pass it on before you go. And thank the man upstairs that you were there. Plant a seed and watch it grow. So fill up your heart with love, pass it on before you go. And thank the man upstairs that you were there. Plant a seed and watch it grow. Watch it grow. Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me all right. My voice is a little weak these days. So, last week, hang on. Last week I was looking at TikTok. All right, I said it. I was looking at TikTok. Anyway, there was this comedian, and whenever I see a comedian, I have to stop and give them a shot and see if they're funny or not. But it was interesting because he said to the people, he was in the middle of a show, he said, "You really want to hear something funny?" He goes, "There are actually people who still go to church." And the people laughed, and I was like offended and shocked. And I was like, I never really believed that could be funny. I understand that people sometimes, aren't interested, but anyway, for a comedian to say it. But it stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, and he said, probably the reason they go is because when they were children, they were taught that if they don't, they'll go to hell. And it kind of just, as they went on, they believed it. And so I asked myself, it's like, well, why do I go to church? And it's certainly not because I'm afraid to go to hell, because I'm good with my Maker. But and so then I was like, well, why? And then the thing is, it's you, it's Crosswalk, it's other churches that I've been to, the people. I love it when Pete challenges us. Sometimes, especially in the beginning, I didn't agree with a lot of things, and it made me go home and think about it, and like, what do I believe? And it's been very good for me. And also, we have most of us here have had God experiences where we know that we know that we know that God is there. Sometimes you can't put it into words, sometimes you can't explain it, but we know. And then when we have like the moth here and people give their testimonies and you see how God is working in people's lives, that's why I go to church. That's why I hang out with the winners. And so anyway, I just wanted to say that, and then that kind of leads me into this song. Every time I try to make it on my own, every time I try to stand and start to fall, and all those lonely roads that I have traveled on, there was Jesus. When the life I built came crashing to the ground, when the friends I haven't were nowhere to be found, I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now. There was Jesus. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it or couldn't see it, there was Jesus. For this man who needs amazing kind of grace, for forgiveness at a price I couldn't pay. I'm not perfect, so I thank God every day. There was Jesus. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it or couldn't see it, there was Jesus. On the mountain, in the valleys, there was Jesus. In the shadows of the alleys, there was Jesus. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it or could see it, there was Jesus. There was Jesus. Amen to that.
So today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to talk at you a little bit, but I'm also going to invite Dave Carney Brown to join me on stage for some dialogue today about this topic of joy and generosity. And the reason I've invited him is because the book that we've been borrowing some ideas from, the Book of Joy, which you've heard me talk about, the collaboration, a conversation between Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama about 10 years ago. Um, they talk about the Buddhist tradition having three primary ways of thinking about generosity. And luckily, Buddhism doesn't own generosity. It is it's a widespread thing, and it's deeply embodied by a lot of enduring traditions, which we should expect. So if we really believe that God is that large and that pervasive and that expressive, and that God is known primarily by love, and that God wants to be in relationship with all people everywhere, however we understand that, then it makes absolute sense that in different pockets of the world, when different religious understanding was forming based in their context, their time in history, and all that, both in South Asia and other parts, that they would begin to talk about similar themes because they're still drawing on the same source. Does that make sense? And of course, their stories and their theology is going to be a little bit different because they're writing from different experiences and different times. But as you've heard me say before, the mystics, the deep mystics from all the enduring religions, talk about the same things when they talk about the expression of what we call God or the divine. And that's deeply hopeful to me. So today, we're talking about this generosity thing. And there are three pieces of it. Ted, if you could give us the next slide. These are the three forms that we're looking at. Material giving, which I'll talk mostly about, and then giving freedom from fear, and spiritual giving, Dave and I will spar a little bit more with. But I want to start talking about this material thing. If you want to hit the next slide, Ted. And on the bulletin that you should have received, or an extra thing just on the teaching, on the front panel there, this is me talking about how Lynn and I, my wife and I, think about generosity and how we've kind of ordered our household with that. On the inside, you've got some pieces about these three movements of generosity, which we'll go over. And then a bonus thing is the last pieces, the joy meditation, the 8 pillars. This is something I encourage you to do. Find some time this week and actually just let this be your guide and meditation at some point this week. It takes you through all the movements, all 8 pillars. It's going to take you a bit of time to do it, but I think the benefit will be really, really worth it. So let me just tell you a little about Lynn and I's story when it comes to money. And I want to put you at ease. You know, if you've been around Crosswalk a while, you know that we are not a church that uses fear or guilt or shame to get people to give. I don't think that's ever supposed to be the motivation for it. Our whole approach is here. I mean, you can tell we don't even pass a plate. It's like, if you can support us, then we deeply appreciate it, and we do. And we've been able to survive all these years with that approach because people who love Crosswalk and love to support us find a way to do that. Lynn and I both grew up in Christian households, but we also both grew up in pastor households. So my dad was a pastor, her dad was a pastor. Both of my grandfathers were also pastors, which means both of my parents grew up in pastor households. And they were also healthy churches that they grew up in. They weren't hellfire brimstone churches. That was never part of our family theology or how we talked about God. And they were also loving households in their own way, in their own expression. Not much dark stuff in my family history, which is great. That's a great benefit. But one of the things that was just part of the water that we swam in was generosity. And my parents, like their parents before them, and I know Lynn's parents did the same thing, they took the tithe really seriously. That's a word that you hear in churches. And the idea behind that is tithe literally means tenth. And so in some religious traditions, they really push that tenth. And like, you're not even a good Christian unless you're giving 10% of your income back to the church, kind of a thing. But probably a better way to think about that is a regular practice of giving. A budgeted practice of giving is maybe a better way to approach that or to think about it. But my parents and Lynn's parents and both my grandparents, both sides, they practiced this. And so we knew that growing up. And guess what? There was always food on the table for us. We had clothes to wear. We had shelter. Somehow, some way, when they carved this out for very good purposes, they found out that they could make it. And I think that's part of the crazy thing. And I'll tell you that I never, ever saw my parents begrudgingly cut a check. It was always a joy for them. They got something out of it, and it was joy. And I understand that now. I couldn't understand it when I was a kid. It was just something that was happening. But then as I became an adult, and as Lynn and I got married and started our own household, and we're weighing out, well, how do we do this? We have also found great joy in being generous with material possessions. And so just to give you an idea about how we approach it in our household, I'm not telling you this is the way you should do it, but just so you know where I'm at and know how I think about it. And know that, again, I don't think the purpose of it is ever to guilt people into doing it, but it's meant to bring joy. And so this won't surprise you probably, but in our charitable giving part of our budget that we keep, 90% of it or so, maybe a little bit more than that, all comes back to Crosswalk. And the reason why it comes back to Crosswalk is because we believe so much in Crosswalk. It's not just where my career has been and where Lynn serves as well, but we really believe in it, and we're very proud of who this place is, and how many things are touched when we give just to Crosswalk. You think about it? I mean, of course we do the thing that we do on Sundays and other ways of faith formation that are church-related stuff. But when you support Crosswalk, you support 1,000 people a week flowing in and out of these walls for recovery. You're a part of that. When you support Crosswalk, you support people getting help to become legal citizens through our immigration clinics that we partner with multiple agencies and offer our space because it's perfect space for that. When you support Crosswalk, you support our amazing food pantry that are so wonderfully led by Linda and Carrie. And what a remarkable thing that is. What started as a ministry primarily for church members who were struggling has now blossomed into this thing. We still do that, of course. If you need help, we're here to help. But we help, somewhere around 20 or 24-ish people who can't get other food services in Napa because of time or dietary restrictions, and we cover that gap. I mean, how cool is that? And one of the coolest things that they're doing now is in conjunction with the city, when people move out of houselessness into a home, it's Crosswalk's food pantry that sets up their pantry so they come into something and ready to go. I just think that's remarkable. So when you support Crosswalk and the missions, especially with that, that's part of what you're doing. And we're very, very proud of that. And of course, we have space for a preschool, so we're touching kids, and multiple nonprofits meet here to help things go. We're also a home gym for multiple groups. I mean, why wouldn't you want to support Crosswalk? And we also represent equity and belonging as a Christian church here in Napa. And that is a rare thing in our day and time, to have not just a Christian church, but a Baptist church. For a Baptist church to say, we believe in equality all across the board, for LGBTQ persons and neighbors, for women, the whole thing can rise to the top. I mean, that's belonging, and I think we live into that. So by supporting Crosswalk, you support that message everywhere. And we also do things all around the world and regionally as well. So, of course, probably not a shock to you that Crosswalk gets the lion's share of what we do. And there's a reason why also that we give so much to this place. And that has to do with how many people are giving to this place. We're not a large church. Technically, you may think we're kind of a smaller church. And we kind of are, depending on what your measure is. But in terms of national numbers, we're what's called a medium church. Most churches have like 50 or less people nationwide. That's the average size of a church. Small churches are considered less than 50. We have about, on campus on average on a Sunday morning between the 9 and 10 o'clock service, somewhere 100-ish, a little over 100, and then another 50 to 100 over the week stream us every week. So we have this body of people that call Crosswalk home. And out of that body of people, a percentage of people support Crosswalk generously. That means that there aren't that many people, relatively speaking, who support Crosswalk. Other organizations that Lynn and I support, you might have hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of people contributing just a little bit for those organizations. But for Crosswalk, it's not that many. So we do it because we want to see this place thrive, but we also do it because we recognize that there aren't that many of us just because of the size of our church to make this thing happen. And so we want to be a part of that in a larger way. But beyond Crosswalk, there are also other things that we believe in. So we want to see gun violence come down. So we've been giving to Giffords for some time because I think they're doing good work on a national level to help tackle that. We believe that environmental health is a thing. We believe that climate change is a thing, and that we human beings have responsibility and stewardship to take care of our planet. And so John Muir, love John Muir's work. He started the Sierra Club, so we support Sierra Club and for the work that they do to make sure that our environment stays healthy. There are a couple theologians that we help out. Pete Enns has a group called Bible for Normal People, and he does really interesting, great scholarship with that. We support that. Tom Ord's Center for the Open and Relational Theology, which is kind of our theological camp. We support that because we want to see that organization go, but at a much smaller scale. So my encouragement to you, one is, and this gets to some of our questions, is to ask the question for yourself if you haven't. How are you financially supporting work that heals and is aligned with your passion? So I've shared with you what our passions are and why we do that. And then this last question, how do you determine how much support to provide? Because I want to be really, really clear. I know that there are churches that really push hard that 10% thing, but I can tell you that there are people in every church that if you were to demand 10% of them, it would absolutely break them. That it is inappropriate for them to give 10%. It may be inappropriate for them to give 2%. And so I want to make a clear statement. You know, Jesus has this moment in his ministry where there's this widow, and she also had no children. So she's all alone in the world, and she's hanging around the temple, and she's about to give an offering to the temple. And all she has is half a cent in our way of thinking. She puts the very last half cent that she has into the offering plate. And Jesus tells some religious leaders who are close by, who are benefiting from her generosity, he said to them, you know, that woman has given more than anybody else here today, even though it was just half a penny. He was referring to her sacrifice and said that she was blessed. Now, some pastors take a look at that and they use that to put pressure on you, saying, well, if she did that, then you should do that. So whatever's in your bank account, clear it out today. If you feel so inclined, you're welcome to do that. But that's not the point of the story. And actually, I would go the other way. I would say that Jesus in that moment was frustrated that there was a system that existed, that this poor, literally poor woman felt she had to give up her last half cent so that she would get her benefits from the temple that was acting like her Social Security, because that's what it was. I think Jesus would say, keep your money. God bless you for your faithfulness, but keep your money. Buy another loaf of bread or something with that. And so I want to say to you that if you struggle financially and you consistently have more month than money and you can't afford, literally, it would literally put you at risk to support Crosswalk or anything else for that matter, don't do it. Don't do it. Because sometimes those are the cards that were dealt in life. In fact, I'd even go further. If you get to the point at the end of your month where you got to make a decision between medication and food or your rent, and is that tight for you? I've been there. I understand what that's like. I want to tell you, let us help you. We have a food pantry that, in giving you food that might get you through a week or so, if that frees up money for you to take care of your medication or keep your lights on, that's why we have it. So we never want anybody to be in that kind of a pickle, and we can help with that. So for some people, 10% is ridiculous, and they shouldn't even begin to consider that. However, I also want to say on the other side that some people and churches recognize that 10% is perhaps an inappropriate limit, because in our culture and our time, there are people of great wealth. That 10% is not that significant. Sometimes, especially in political races, I remember a few years ago, there was a lot of press on Arnold Schwarzenegger and how much charitable giving he gave. And if you looked on paper, it was a lot. It was like hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it was in that particular year. But then when you consider how much money Arnold Schwarzenegger had, that much money probably wasn't any sacrifice at all. Didn't really mean much to him personally. I know of one mega rich family in Southern California that fund a foundation to do charitable work. And because I know enough about the particular foundation, I know that they don't really give a rip about what the foundation does, whether it succeeds or fails. They just want it there to be a place to help them with their taxation issues. They have so much money that project that is funded with tens of millions of dollars every year doesn't really matter to them. In situations like that, I like what I'm seeing in Warren Buffett, who's recognizing that he has more money than God, and he is encouraging his extremely wealthy friends to be extremely generous and encouraging them at their death to basically clear it out, to leave enough for the family, but donate the rest back. That's a great vision for what is possible financially. My question for you is not to in any way berate you or to make you feel pressure, but just to raise the question, as Brian said, to think about it. Generosity of material possessions matters. I feel good about the donations that I make because I know it's helping a wide range of things. What are you giving that you're passionate about? Have you experienced the joy that comes with being generous with your stuff? And how do you determine how much that is? So enough of that. I want to bring Dave on up and grab a stool, and we are going to have a conversation about the next area. And I think you're live now. Give that a shot. Very good. Let's welcome Dave to the stage. All right, Dave. So on the next slide, Ted, you can be our Vanna today. This is an interesting one, and this also is the text from this in the passage in your bulletin is simply this: giving freedom from fear. This can involve giving protection, counsel, or solace. This is how we can give our time and attention to others. So the questions are: who needs your presence today? Do your children, your spouse, your parents, your colleagues, your friends, or even the stranger on the street need your compassion and your caring? And to whom can you reach out to support? By the way, Jesus is well known for his generosity of care for people who really, really needed it, especially those who are vulnerable. That's why it's just astonishing to me that expressions of the church in America and around the world today are calling for harsher treatment of people who are the most vulnerable in our world. And it's like, that is so counter to the very way of Jesus that you're claiming to follow. It just makes you wonder, have you read the book? Because Jesus was exceedingly generous with his time and presence and space. Can you speak into this from a Buddhist perspective, Dave?
Well, yeah, I was going to say that that I have a lot. My experience is pretty practical in terms of Buddhism. So I had to study up on generosity. There's certain subjects I've covered a lot in my teaching practice and my coaching practice, but generosity wasn't really one of them. And so yeah, no, that's a great point, a great place to look at it, because in terms of the freedom from fear, there was a couple of things that I ran into when I was reading about it, and one of them was about, generosity can be as simple as giving a smile, smiling at people when you go by. It's a lot about kindness. It's a lot about compassion and empathy. It can also be about forbearance or forgiveness, right? Not saying something or letting things go. In fact, I'm planning on doing a guided meditation. We're going to sort of visualize into that and practice that on a really practical level. So, but when you talk about the most vulnerable and you talk about freedom from fear, that was the real foundation, one of the real foundations of generosity. And I just wanted to share, because I recently did a deep dive with a friend on the Sermon on the Mount, and I learned a lot through the conversation we had. And generosity is a through line there, and it's almost like, because Buddha said the first thing is generosity. That was his first precept. This is the most important thing. But Jesus also puts it up front in the Sermon on the Mount, the part about how you give. If you give and expect to receive. And those very same words appear in a lot of the Buddhist teachings, is Generosity is when we give and we don't expect to receive back. We don't expect to get any gain. So it's really interesting how, like you were saying, how foundational this is. And I think a lot of it is that we're opening up, we're leaning into a lot of the goodness of what it is to be a person. The goodness of God is generosity, leads into compassion, empathy, love, caring for others, which are also very natural attributes. But specifically on the fear, one of the things Buddha talks about is being someone who no one needs to fear. And so that's about living in a way and acting in a way that people don't have to be afraid of your reactions and how you're going to react. So that was one thing that really struck me. But then also conquering and working with fear in ourselves so that we can model that. What is it like to live with less fear, to live without fear?
That's great. Wanted to tap in on something that came out of our midweek group today on generosity in general. And last week, we talked about compassion and all the ways that data shows that when we are compassionate, it does good things for our health. It really, really does. Lowers our stress level, lets the good chemicals into our brain. It's good for heart health to be compassionate. But Norman, in our 12 o'clock group on Tuesday, noted that compassion is a feeling that we have that needs to be expressed. And it's when it's expressed, then it becomes active. And generosity is one of those actions that expresses our compassion. For what we do with our material, it's an expression of compassion. We want the world to be a better place, so we're going to support places that make the world a better place. And now with this fear, there's a great line in it's Paul's letter to his protege Timothy. And he says to this young pastor who is probably being challenged, do not be afraid. The Spirit of the Lord does not call you into fear, but into courage and hope and action and right living. And so this idea about being fear is counter to the very presence of God. And we want to give you some time to think about this. So what we've talked about is ways that you have been a space for solace and comfort. And I want to turn it around first a little bit. Who has done that for you? Who has been that voice of comfort and alleviating your fear of just being present with you? And I want you to spend a second just with each other around your tables or next to each other. Who has been present for you to help you in those kinds of times when you were afraid or feeling more on the desperate side? Okay, take just a few shakes to do that. They blend. Yeah, they blend. inspiring. All right, there we are. Okay, so thank you for talking. We're going to make you talk one more time here, but let me talk a little bit about this next move. If we can go to the next slide, Ted. This one has to do with spiritual giving. And you may not think that you have anything to give because you don't have fancy letters before or after your name. You're not a pastor. But let me tell you, you have much, much to give here. So in our little blurb in the handout today, you don't have to be a holy man or woman or a spiritual teacher to give in this way. Spiritual giving can involve giving wisdom and teaching to those who may need them, but it can also involve helping others to be more joyful through the generosity of your own spirit. Seek to be an oasis of caring and concern as you live your life. Simply smiling at others as you walk down the street can make an enormous difference in the quality of human interaction in your community. And it is this interaction that is most responsible for the quality of human life on our increasingly crowded and lonely planet, our affluent and still impoverished world. So there are a couple examples about how Jesus pulled this off in pretty remarkable ways. One of the ways that he did this, which has a direct correlation to spirituality, had to do with a woman that he met in the strangest place. And I did a whole 5-week series just on this one story several years ago. And it's the story of Jesus and the woman at the well. You can read about it I think it's John chapter 4. And Jesus he's going to be heading home from Jerusalem, and he's got to get back up to the Sea of Galilee region, which is on the northern part, Nazareth area. And in between those two sections of ancient Israel was a region called Samaria. And the Samaritan people took a different theological turn a few centuries before Jesus was even born. And because of their theological turn and a schism, there was great enmity between the Samaritan people and the way they practiced their faith, even though they're coming from the same Jewish roots, with the other Jewish people in ancient Israel. These people hated each other. I want you to think about Giants fans and Dodgers fans. It's that bad, that pronounced, right? And so most of the people, Jewish people who wanted to get to the northern part of where the Sea of Galilee is, they would follow the Jordan River all the way up to the Sea of Galilee, even though it took them longer to do that. So one day Jesus is on his way with the disciples, and they come to the fork in the road where they get to decide, which way do we go? And Jesus says to the disciples, we have to go through Samaria, not around it. And the disciples, you can just hear them bickering about it. No, we don't. We don't have to go through. We'd rather take our time and go around this stinky place called Samaria because we hate Samaritans. So Jesus was making a missional statement, a theological statement. No, we're going to go through the part that we hate. Well, let's just see what happens. And they end up at Jacob's Well, this deeply meaningful historical space where so much happened in ancient Jewish history. And he's at this well. The guys leave him behind. They go to the nearby village to catch some in and out and come back. And while he's there, this woman shows up, who is from Samaria. That makes her a Samaritan woman. That means that there's going to be sparks a flying. But the odd thing is, it's in the middle of the day. Nobody goes to get water in the middle of the day. And another odd thing is this is a woman alone coming to get water in the middle of the day. Immediately, Jesus intuits two really important things. One is, why is this woman here at the heat of the day when everybody knows you're supposed to go at the earliest hours of the day, even pre-dawn, so it's not so hot, because this is the Middle East, right? It's hot. And the second thing he puts together is she's alone because she has to be. Or she's alone because it's too painful to be with the people that she could go with. She's choosing. Or it's not really a choice to go alone because somebody has not welcomed her in the space that she would normally go. And that's exactly what was true. Jesus does a remarkable thing as a spiritually generous thing. These are two people who hate each other, two people who recognize as they're coming that Jesus is wearing an SF on his cap, and she's wearing Dodgers blue. So she knows where she stands with this guy, and he starts the conversation. That's breaking rules. In that time in history, men don't start conversations with women. Jewish men certainly don't start a conversation with Samaritan women. And a Jewish rabbi certainly does not start a conversation with a Samaritan woman. And yet he doesn't. Asks her, hey, could you help me out? Could you draw some water for me from this well? And she reacts to it defensively because she's a Samaritan woman who can't stand Jewish people. He's not taking the bait. He keeps leaning into the conversation, making conversation, putting some spiritual hints in here and there. She fights him a little bit. She finds out that he kind of understands her life story, that she's lost many husbands, probably of no fault of her own, but because of this, she's been rejected by most of the people in the village. And the only person that's going to take her in to provide shelter for her now is another man, but she's not married to him. So she finds herself in scandal, very, very alone, very, very vulnerable. And yet Rabbi Jesus is making the conversation with her. She tries to deflect him with a spiritual argument. She was sure this would tick off a Jewish rabbi, but he doesn't take the bait. Instead of going for divisiveness and talking about, well, we're right and you're wrong, and pointing fingers and all and making the case, he just simply says this incredible statement. He says, you know what? There's going to be a day when we're not caring anymore about which mountain we're worshiping on, because that was one of the arguments, is where does God really want us to worship? And Samaritans had their mountain, Jewish had their mountain, their high place. And Jesus said, you know what? That is so off point, because true worshipers of God worship in spirit and in truth, because God is spirit. True worshipers, spirit and truth. This changed her life. She came in feeling dejected, and she just got fed this incredible spiritual truth, which let her let go of so much. She ran back to her village, a different person, and they recognized how different she was because something foundational shifted. This woman that they ignored because of her life story, now they're wondering, what happened to you? And she says, you got to follow me back to see this Jesus dude, because he said some things that blew my mind and have changed my life. And because she was so changed, they followed her to listen to Jesus. The disciples, these Jewish guys, end up staying in this village for a few days, experiencing Samaritan hospitality. This is crazy. All because generosity was at play in Jesus' life, to make a bridge, to help people realize we are not different. We are all in the same human race. Let's love each other. Let's belong. That is a way of being generous. So you, by doing that, is one way of doing that. So what can you share with us, Dave, on the Buddhist side?
So I think one thing I want to that we haven't really touched on a lot is yeah, and that's a wonderful story. There's so many things to talk about with that, but it does illustrate how the simplicity, the simplicity of kindness, the simplicity of connection can be a spiritual generosity, can change people especially across borders like that and boundaries. And that's a very real thing. And it's still, in our divided society, still very much a real thing, very much a real thing. I think what I wanted to come back to that we haven't really touched on is that this is a practice. There's a reason it appears in the Sermon on the Mount in a very explicit way, and there's a reason. I was telling Pete that this was the first precept of Buddha. It was the first thing he talked about was generosity, and I think it's because it's such an easy way into the cultivation of the qualities we're looking for. But and something, because generosity is an outward action, and it's because we think of it as a moral good, we can kind of miss the fact that this is actually a spiritual practice. And as a spiritual practice, it means that what we're, at least as importantly, or even more importantly perhaps, this is changing us inside. These practices are changing us inside. They are opening up our heart. They are making us a more spiritually generous person. And I was telling Pete that I don't, one of the things I love about about doing this at Crosswalk is it stretches me because I've leaned into a lot of pieces of Buddhism and meditation practice, and that's mainly what I do is practice, is the practices, is how to practice this stuff in your life. I haven't leaned into generosity a lot, and we were talking about why isn't that more front, because it's, in the teachings, it's actually right up there in front. So it got me to thinking about it, and I practice generosity a lot, and I'm going to talk about this. I was going to talk about it like I know this guy who, but then Pete talked about all his donating, so I think I could talk about it because I'm not a good donator, so I'm challenged to start tithing more. But I'm super generous with my time. In fact, I'm probably as busy as I was when I was working. I'm retired now, and it's all volunteer. I tutor kids who are struggling with reading. I work with a group that's trying to bring really these principles into our economy, into our society, in a way that's meaningful, that will change things so that we can all have enough. I mean, we can all have a just society, a sustainable society, working with climate change. And most all this work I do is I do for not pay. And when I think about that, it's like you would expect at some point burnout or resentment or something, but that never happens for me. In fact, what I have to be mindful of is that other people, there needs to be some reciprocity at some point. Other people need to be able to give back to me. And so I ran across a quote, sometimes it's generous to allow other people to give to you, so it's, but I just want to share that when I think about that as generosity, because I wasn't even thinking about it as generosity, because I get so much out of it. I'll just share this little thing. I work at Maya Kamas Village in the Von Brandt Center, and I tutor kids in reading, and we've had some amazing results. I've had some amazing results, and it's really I use this play chore model that I developed with my daughter. So we do whatever we want. We play hide and seek for 10 minutes, or we'll play. I have one child, 5th grader, I played soccer with for 4 years. And then we go in and we read. And so it's like this really easy, relaxed thing. And I'm there for 2 hours twice a week. And it's a joy. It's so wonderful. I leave that place feeling so full and so alive. And they give me a party. It's embarrassing. They give me a party once a year on my birthday, and they shower me with gifts, and they shower me with food, and all the kids, the director there makes all the kids say how much they're grateful for and write me letters. And it's, I think the point of that is not so much because that's embarrassing, but the point of that is that it comes back, how it comes back when we practice generosity. And, so we're going to do a meditation in a minute, and I'm going to try and make it concrete in this visualization of just, here's some places that maybe we could practice generosity. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I just wanted to touch on that aspect of it, how it's good for us inside. Both it's good for wellness-wise, physically, and also spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah, I want to celebrate Dave for a second, because I was reading an article recently about retirement and how people find meaning in retirement and joy in retirement. And one of the primary things was finding purposefulness in retirement. Who am I? What am I doing to contribute to the world? And a couple years ago, when Dave and I were talking one day under the redwoods over there, he was talking about all these amazing things he's doing in retirement. I was like, man, when I retire, I want to do it like you. I mean, really, this is the poster child for meaningful engagement with his world, and I've seen it. He's not making this up. The guy walks around in joy, and I just love that. And it's not a burden to you that I see, but you're involved in different things, using your skills, riding your bike everywhere, which is super cool. So anyway, just really commend you and thank you for sharing part of your story, because that's the real deal. And I just want to put in a plug. One of the gifts that Dave brings us is he does lead in our meditation at least once a month in our service, but also teaches a class, which is mostly practice on meditation on the 4th Sunday. or the last Sunday of the month. So this month, right after this service, in our small conference room where our parents are meeting right now for a special parent session just for them, he'll be leading a class on meditation if you're interested in taking that further. Okay, we want to give you a second to talk to each other. So the questions for you here today: how has someone sown wisdom for your spiritual journey? How has someone been an oasis? And then how have you been an oasis for somebody else? And how might you be an oasis today? So we're just going to give you a couple minutes to do those things. We'll cover music for you to do it, so you do it. Two things left. Dave is going to lead us in a meditation in response to the things that we've been talking about, and then I have a final benediction that we'll read together on the screen. So Dave, take it away.
All right. So the one thing I want to say in terms of introduction to this is that these practices do come from the Buddhist tradition. They're called cultivations, but they're very I love that Pete brought that up, the connections. It feels permission for me to bring it up. Of just, you see the connections, as I said in the Sermon on the Mount, you see these connections with practice, with making it real, with how you do that, and with so there's two things about the cultivation practices that we're going for. One is is self-knowledge, but also self-development. We're trying to bring out through this practice of experiencing generosity while we're meditating. We're practicing experience generosity. And I've been doing these practices for years, and they really do work. And there's practices for all, there's compassion, joy. The joy one's particularly cool because it's just like you learn how to just be sitting. I always say standing in line at Trader Joe's and you just go, oh, it's great to be alive, and you can feel it. But generosity is one of the practices where it brings us to the second thing, which is where we meet our edge. And we sort of meet our edge in all these things, even with happiness. You would think that would be really simple, but you meet your edge. You say, why, I need a reason to be happy when you first start practicing. And with generosity, it's even more so because we as we meet our edge about who am I generous to, how generous, what is reasonable, what is not reasonable. And when you look at, of course, these are models, and we have to, as Pete was saying, we have to take care of ourselves financially in a capitalist system. We're responsible for ourselves, for our material well-being and welfare. So we have to balance that. But when you look at Jesus and Buddha, what they meant by generosity, they were impoverished. Buddha begged for his dinner every day. That was part of his spiritual practice. He went door to door. So they gave up everything for this practice. So that's one end of the spectrum, right? Is for us to find on that journey, finding those places and knowing and having some faith that generosity will always bring us joy. Generosity will always make the world a better place. We have to find that balance and find those places for that. So let's just start. That was too many words. So let me say first we're cultivating the feelings, and the second is we may meet an edge where you go, I just can't deal with that, and that's fine. That's part of the practice. And so I'm not gonna lean too much into that, but I intend to lean a little bit into that. So just notice that edge. That's self-knowledge. So just notice that. Mindfulness, simple meditation. Feel them solidly planted there, even if it's just 1 foot. Feel the sensations coming from your feet. Sensations of heat and cold, top of your feet maybe a little cooler than the bottom of your feet, or vice versa. Pressure on the ball of your foot and your heel. And then let's practice with our attention, moving your attention up to your seat on your chair and just feeling into that area of your body. Senses are here in the moment. So they're always a really easy, practical way to bring ourselves into the moment. Just feel the sensations, your sit bones on the chair. And then let's bring our attention to our hearing. I like to really use hearing because when you focus on your hearing, what you're hearing, the sound of the traffic, maybe this little rustle of leaves, this tends to quiet our internal monologue when we use our hearing to listen. So just for a moment, listen very carefully to what you hear. Okay, beautiful. And one last thing for this is just focus on the feel for a moment of your breath. This is just your body breathing, but just notice your body breathing by focusing on the air coming in and out of your nose and how that feels. Cooler air in, warmer air out. So it'll probably be easiest for this if we close our eyes, because I'm going to ask you to be visualizing, maybe remembering. If visualizing is hard, you can tell yourself the story, or you can sort of, if possible, feel it. And let's start with material generosity first. So just visualize an unhoused person. It may be somebody you've seen lately, or maybe, or you can just visualize it, or a memory of passing somebody. And just imagine that you're passing them, you're passing by them, walking down the street, walking down the sidewalk. And you notice them more fully than often you do. It's not just a glance. And I always get that sort of sad feeling. So pull a $20 bill out of your pocket and just walk over and hand it to this person. As I say, notice as you hand it to them, notice their reaction in your mind. Notice how you might feel. Some connection, some softening, like that story of the woman at the well, Jesus and the woman at the well. All of a sudden there's a softening, a connection, gratitude and happiness. A feeling of agency and power, because you can actually do something for somebody else that's just for them. So now let's move into a practice of generosity for freedom from fear. So again, really pithy one. Imagine or remember, or it might be a memory of being in a place and you're supposed to meet somebody and they're late. And let's say they're 20 minutes late. And so this was how I was imagining freedom from fear, is that we can act in such a way that you know that person who's coming is anxious and fearful and afraid you're going to be mad in some part of themselves. Even if they're like me and they're late all the time, they're feeling those things. And so imagine how you respond with generosity when they arrive. How would you respond with generosity? Be warm, say it was fine, say you were enjoying just a moment of quiet. It's perfectly understandable. Just as an act of generosity to relieve their anxiety. Notice again how that feels and the difference between in yourself, if you were holding on to resentment or you were holding on to frustration. Instead, feel a softening and this opening and the relief the other person feels. And then let's move on to generosity, spiritual giving, spiritual generosity. And for this part, I want to, because this I relate to this a lot about suffering. There's a lot in Buddhism about how we meet suffering in the world. Even as we become enlightened, as we become more wise and freer, how do we meet other people's suffering? So imagine somebody, it could be somebody you know, or somebody imagined, or somebody in a situation, in a war, or in a place where there's not enough food, or somebody you know, and visualize them. And then visualize yourself just being there. One form of spiritual giving is to just give of yourself to a person totally and allow them to talk to you about what's going on, about their suffering. Somebody just told me about a study that saying, I am sad when you're sad lowers your cortisol level. It lowers your stress level, just saying it out loud. So knowing that just listening to somebody and being totally open and generous with your heart will help them. So just imagine yourself listening to them talk about their problem, empathizing, saying, that makes sense. I'm sorry you're going through that. And then imagine there's something you could do. There's advice or wisdom you could give to them, that you could say it in just the perfect way that it will transform the way they're seeing their situation. And that might be hard if you chose somebody who's in a war zone. You probably shouldn't have used that example. I probably shouldn't have used that example, but imagine that. There's something you could do, or something you could do material for them, help them get to a safe place, or help them, or give them food. And again, just the softening, the connection. Instead of fear in our hearts as a giver, there's a feeling that we can do something in the world. There's a feeling of joy and connection. And then just as a last thing, imagining what they need in terms of what would shift them, what would give them a feeling of satisfaction, a feeling of love, a feeling of acceptance, what would help them right now. And just imagine yourself breathing that out to them and that filling them, that shift to peace, to joy, to love. And then letting go of that. I just briefly, I know this is going long, lots of words, but briefly, just to bring it home, just imagine this week, a place where you already are generous. One of the advices is to find a place where you already find it easy to be generous and lean into that as a practice. So imagine a place you can practice generosity this week in your regular life. Something as simple as a smile, listening to somebody about their day. And then finally, just bring your attention back to your breath for a couple of breaths. Let go of all that. And when you're ready, take a deep breath and roll your shoulders and open your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I found that really helpful, so thank you for doing that. One final move today. We have a benediction that I'd like you to read with me on the next slide, if Ted can bring that up. There it is. I want to tell you that for those of you who are eager beavers and want to help take down tables and chairs, we're not doing that today because we have a memorial service out here at 2 o'clock, so we'll handle that on our own. But we're so glad you're here today, and if you want to come to the memorial service for Chuck Landon, you're certainly welcome at 2 o'clock this afternoon. You'll notice a couple different words. This is a nod to what we would call the Lord's Prayer. A lot of the same themes come out. You'll see the first two words up there, Abba and Amma. Those are the Hebrew words for dad and mom, respectively, or daddy and mommy. So this is Jesus' way of talking about the presence of God as his dad, which is so powerful. Let's say this together. Our Abba, Amma, source of life, presence of love. With our help, may shalom come. May we be generous with our resources so all may thrive. May our gifts of money, protection, counsel, solace, and wisdom allow more love to flow to heal the world. Amen. Thanks for coming today. Have a great week.